and we are recording, so that means it is time to go. Welcome to the RCA. Happy Monday, everybody. And we will go to really quickly housekeeping. Not that you all need this, but in case you're joining us and you would like to participate in the meeting, if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand option, or if you're dialing by phone, *9 to unmute during the public comment part. So thank you for being with us today. That will take us to roll call vote.
Good afternoon, everyone. District 1?
District 1 here.
District 2? District 3?
Here. Here.
District 4? District 5?
I'm here.
Banning?
Here.
Beaumont?
Here.
Calamasa?
Here.
Canyon Lake?
Here.
Corona?
Here.
Eastvale?
Present.
Hemet? Hemet? Harupa Valley?
Here.
Lake Elsinore?
Here.
Menifee?
Here.
Moreno Valley?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
Norco?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Riverside?
Here.
San Jacinto?
Here.
Thank you. Temecula?
Good afternoon.
Wildemar? Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Awesome. Looks like we have a full house today too. Nice to see everybody. Calamasa, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I would be happy to. Would you all stand, put your hand over your heart, and repeat after me? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is going to take us on our agenda to public comments. Are there public comments today?
We did receive written comments from both Michelle Staples and Susan Nash, and both indicated that they would be here to make those comments. I don't see any hands raised, but
I don't have a hand thing on my screen.
Okay.
So I'm raising my hand.
Okay, and just to record, the documentation has been sent out to the board. We all did receive that, Mrs. Nash, and I will turn it over to you for your time during public comments. Welcome.
Okay, my name is Ms. Susan Nash, and I'm president of Friends of the Northern San Jacinto Valley. There is no basis in the MSHCP for the statement that all site fee credits are prohibited by the MSHCP, or that fee credits cannot be granted for lands which are part of the MSHCP reserve system, but were accepted as a donation by another agency, such as the CDFW, as additional reserve land. And of course, CDFW issued the take permit. Any fee policy or fee credit policy which limits the clear language of 6.1.1C or any other is null and void because it is contrary to the MSHCP take permit. An RCA fee credit policy is not required for a landowner to make and negotiate a 6.1.1C donation for fee credits to the RCA. This issue should be on the next executive committee meeting agenda in full compliance with the Brown Act. A full description of the issue should be on the board agenda item, and all of the slideshows to be presented to the board committee should be included in the board packet for public review and comment during the public comment period. How much more time do I have? I don't have any.
You have about 90 seconds.
Okay. 6.1.1 is very simple. First of all, there's a landowner comes to you and says, I want to donate some land. A review is determined whether it's needed for inclusion in the conservation area. That means that the property is in a criteria area or subject to other conservation criteria. The parties, the RCA then gets back to the parties and says, these are the incentives that we will negotiate with. They can be any incentives, they're not limited. Negotiations will focus on establishing a purchase price and other incentives that may be available to assist the acquisition and compensate the property owner. If the parties are unable to reach agreement during the negotiation period, conflict resolution may be commenced. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nash.
And I'm also here, Michelle Staples.
All right, we will turn the floor to you then.
Thank you. I did submit a comment letter to the board for discussion this morning. At the February 7th meeting, I had submitted a comment letter with several comments, including comments on the fee credits. But one of the other comments was requesting that the clarification about the ability to prepay MSHCP fees, that be made retroactive, because one of my clients, TriPoint, had asked for that clarification last year on behalf of the city of Beaumont, and the RCA staff felt that the clarification wasn't necessary. Well, the clarification came, but it was in February after that fee had already increased. So I had asked that it be made retroactive, and the board at that time asked that all the comments in my letter be sent to the stakeholder committee. But that request was not included on the stakeholder committee agenda, and neither was my comment letter included in the stakeholder committee agenda package. So I'm just asking that at the next stakeholder committee meeting that my comment letter please be included in their agenda package, and that this request also be provided a fair vetting before the stakeholder committee. And if I have another moment, another one of my clients is the Riverside County Farm Bureau. And we had asked that RCA make an opportunity for Farm Bureau to be represented on the stakeholder committee. That was declined because the staff felt that they would have to reopen the entire process. But landowners represented by the Riverside County Farm Bureau own thousands of acres affected by the MSHCP. I don't know where the snafu was in communicating with the Farm Bureau, but I feel it is important that they be represented on the stakeholder committee as they were on the original stakeholder committee. And I would ask the board to please consider this at the next executive committee meeting to give some top-down direction to staff in this regard. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Staples. I see we have another request to speak, Lisa.
Yes, Ed Sauls.
Oh, yes. Thank you, everybody. I do want to say that there was a very good stakeholder meeting last week. I want to thank the board and the staff RCA for accommodating that. It was a very narrow agenda, and there were broader issues relative to both the mitigation fee credit and other issues relative to acquisitions and other things that were requested that they be included in the future agenda items. That includes some of the things that Michelle Staples has mentioned, and I just want to say that her requests are broader than just her clients or other people affected. So thank you very much. Again, the summary of the request is that we have a broader discussion about fee credits. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sauls. Are there any other requests to speak?
I'm seeing a hand raised from Director Martinez.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, just for clarification, can I have the name of speaker 2 again?
Michelle Staples.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any other requests to speak?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay, thank you to our speakers today. That's going to take us to item number 5, which I don't believe we have any additional revisions. So before we go to closed session, are there any requests to speak or public comment for closed session?
Yes, we did receive a public comment on this item and a written public comment. It was forwarded to the board earlier this morning, and it is from Ms. Susan Nash, and she's here to speak.
Okay. My comments are, while negotiations, again, Susan Nash on behalf of the Friends of the Northern San Jacinto Valley. While negotiations with the landowner may take place in closed session, once these negotiations are concluded and a decision is made, CEQA requires that all acquisitions of land by the RCA need a subsequent or supplemental CEQA document because the MSHCP EIR is only a program EIR. This new document must include, but is not limited to, the requirement that the RCA land acquisition complies with 6.1.1 A, B, and C by including, but is not limited to, the following information. Is each parcel of land needed for the MSHCP? Is it in a criteria area or subject to other MSHCP criteria? Is the land in conjunction with a development application, B, or not, C? Has fair market value been paid for the property? Have any incentives been used? If so, describe. Have all conflict resolution procedures been concluded? After these negotiations are concluded, these land acquisitions must be brought to a public hearing at the full board with an appropriate CEQA document. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nash. Are there any other requests to speak before I turn it over to Mr. DeBon for our closed session announcement?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
All right, Mr. DeBon.
Yes, we have properties on the closed session agenda that are listed for consideration by the board, and we will now be going into closed session to discuss possible acquisition.
Please stand by.
Board Member Ruiz, are you still in this main room?
I am.
Okay, all right. I will move you over. Sorry about that. Just a second.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Lisa, are we all back?
I'm not seeing Philip, so I don't believe so.
Everyone is back.
All right. Thank you, Philip. And just to make sure, San Jacinto, can you hear us? Are you back?
I'm back.
Awesome. Okay. All right, then that is going to take us to our closed session report, which,
Yes, Madam Chair, there is no reportable action for today's closed session.
okay, thank you. Consent calendar is item number 7, and we have 6 items on the consent calendar. Are there any requests to speak?
We did not receive any written comments on the consent calendar, and I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Rupa Valley, motion to approve.
Second.
Thanks, Heather.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Harupa and a second by Canyon Lake. If there's no further discussion, we'll go to roll call vote for the consent calendar.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Harupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Aye.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Aye.
Goldemar.
Aye.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes.
All right, thank you, everybody. That takes us to item number 8, which is the authorization to acquire tax defaulted properties from the Riverside County Treasurer Tax Collector and adoption of Resolution 2022-004 objecting to the public sale. Are there any requests to speak?
We did receive written comments on this item from Ms. Susan Nash, and a copy was forwarded to the board prior to the meeting. And additionally, she is here to speak.
Thank you. These actions do not comply with either the MSHCP or with the California Environmental Quality Act. All actions to acquire property must comply with 6.1.1A, and as this appears to be an acquisition without a development application, with 6.1.1C. This means that at a minimum, the board action and the required CEQA document, because this is only a program EIR, must show that 1, each parcel is needed for the MSHCP, is in a criteria area or is subject to other MSHCP criteria, that fair market value has been paid for the property, and that any incentives which have been used would be described, and that all conflict resolution procedures have been concluded. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nash. Mr. DeBon, would you like to provide some clarity about our process for tax default acquisition?
Yes, I'd like to address in particular the Ms. Nash's comments on the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. The as Ms. Nash notes, there was a program EIR performed at the time the MSHCP was prepared and adopted. That program EIR, part and parcel of that program EIR is the purchase of property. And for property that is within criteria cells that is anticipated to be purchased by the RCA as part of the MSHCP, we do not believe that additional CEQA findings are required and that we can rely on the program EIR that was adopted back in the 2000s. With regards to the other findings, we believe that those are included or part and parcel of the very action approving the purchase, and there's no additional special finding that is required by the board to proceed.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I believe our staff report is, Monica, will you be presenting this item to us today?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Monica Tlaxcala, Acting Right-of-Way Manager, and today I will be presenting a request for the board to authorize the acquisition of tax defaulted properties and adoption of Resolution 2022-004 as required by the Riverside County Tax Collector. Next slide, please. In March of 2022, staff received a list of tax defaulted properties from the Riverside County Tax Collector's Office, consisting of over 250 properties. State law allows public agencies like the RCA to purchase tax defaulted properties before they are sold at a public auction. Historically, RCA has successfully taken this opportunity to acquire properties for MSHCP additional reserve lands and proposes to the board that we do so again. Staff reviewed each of the properties in the list from the tax collector to determine if they provide conservation value under the MSHCP. After careful review and assessment by staff, including our county parks team, staff determined 11 properties are within criteria cells and described for conservation by the MSHCP. Those 11 properties are depicted on this map in yellow. As you can see from the map on the screen, the properties fall within the following areas of Western Riverside County: Temescal Canyon, Lake Elsinore, Moreno Valley, Tanaja Corridor, and 5 of those parcels are located in the Wilson Valley Sage area. In the next slides, we'll go through each property and its sale price as set by the Riverside County Tax Collector. Next slide, please. The first tax defaulted property is owned by EID LLC and Marco Polo Wonderland LLC and is approximately 6 acres in size. It is located near Collier Avenue in the city of Lake Elsinore. The property is within criteria cells 4166 and 4169. It is in rough step unit 8 and it contributes to linkage 2. The sales price, including all fees, is approximately $45,044. Next slide, please. The second tax defaulted property is owned by James A. and Estela O. Gonzalez and Jesse Munoz and is approximately 14.61 acres in size. It is located near Washburn Road, north of Lake Elsinore. The property is within criteria cell 3759, is in rough step unit 8, and contributes to proposed core 1. The sales price, including all fees, is approximately $46,098. Next slide, please. The third and fourth tax defaulted properties are both owned by Janeth H. Collins. The first property is a total of 0.84 acres, and the second property is a total of 1 acre for a total of 1.84 acres. Can you go to the next slide, please, so we can show information on the second property? These properties are located off Hill Court and Retchie Vista Drive, north of the city of Moreno Valley. The properties are within criteria cell 374, are in rough step unit 2, and contribute to proposed linkage 4. Each property has a sales price of $5,837, and the combined sales price, including all fees, is approximately $11,674. Next slide, please. The fifth tax defaulted property is owned by Marcus and Sharon Ney and is approximately 4.40 acres in size. The property is located north of Long Branch Way and west of Trifone Road in Sage. The property is within criteria cell 6167, is in rough step unit 4, and contributes to proposed core 7. The sales price, including all fees, is $5,229. Next slide, please. The sixth tax defaulted property is owned by Cody and Genevieve Clausen and is approximately 40.24 acres in size. It is located south of Bow Hill Road and north of Lewis Valley Road in Sage. The property is within criteria cell 6169, is in rough step unit 4, and contributes to proposed course 7. The sales price, including all fees, is $30,591. Next slide, please. The 7 tax defaulted property is owned by Jill Johnson, Jessica Lynn Orozco Epps, and John Austin Epps, and is approximately 19.49 acres in size. It is located at 38750 Reed Valley Road in Aguanga. The property is within criteria cell 6211, is in rough step unit 4, and contributes to proposed course 7. The sales price, including all fees, is $112,193. Next slide, please. The 8th tax defaulted property is owned by Kimberly Ann Montiel and is approximately 4.46 acres in size. It is located south of Wilson Valley Road and northwest of Schmidt Road in Sage. The property is within criteria cell 6936, is in rough step unit 4, and contributes to proposed course 7. The sales price, including all fees, is $11,645. Next slide, please. The 9th tax defaulted property is owned by Franklin E. and Mary L. Reynolds, is approximately 2.64 acres in size, and is located south of Roan Way and southwest of Crazy Horse Canyon Drive in Sage. The property is within criteria cell 6828, is in rough step unit 4, and contributes to proposed course 7. The sales price, including all fees, is $6,996. Next slide, please. The 10th and 11th tax defaulted properties are both owned by Olga Hinkle and David Adam Hinkle. The first property is a total of 13.02 acres, and the second property is a total of 13.04 acres for a total of 26.06 acres in size. Can you go to the next slide, please, to show information on the second property? The properties are located off Carancho Road and northwest of La Mancha Road in Temecula. The properties are within criteria cell 7308, are in rough step unit 5, and contribute to linkage 9. The property identified as 933-150-008 has a sales price of $113,101, and the property identified as 933-150-009 has a sales price of $100,015, 746. The combined sales price, including all fees, is approximately $228,847. Next slide, please. The Chapter 8 agreement process allows a public agency to purchase tax defaulted property, but it is an involved 9-step process. We are at step 1, and to complete the first step, RCA is required to submit a board-adopted resolution to Riverside County Tax Collector prior to April 12th, objecting to the public auction sale of these properties. Anytime during the process, the tax collector may inform RCA that the property owner has redeemed or paid the taxes on the property, and it will no longer be available for purchase. It is estimated the current owners will be given the opportunity to redeem or pay back taxes for at least 1 year from now. Adopting this resolution does not mean that the property owners are precluded from redeeming their property prior to sale. This resolution simply reserves the opportunity for RCA to acquire these properties in the future if the property owners do not pay their taxes within the required time frame. Next slide, please. Based on the information provided, staff recommends the board take the following actions as stated in the staff report. The first action is to authorize the acquisition of the tax defaulted properties in the amount not to exceed $498,318. And the second action to adopt resolution 2022-004. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you. Trying to be respectful. Look at me. Okay, can we please put the slide with the actions back up for consideration of the board, and then I will ask the board for questions or comments and or considerations of the actions recommended by staff. Let's see, I can't see all hands, but I do see Supervisor Washington. I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't actually have a question. I did before the presentation regarding item number 2, but Monica did a pretty good job of explaining what happens with that property and why we want to adopt that resolution. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation, both step 1 and step 2.
Second, Temecula.
All right, I do have a motion and a second, but I think we have additional comments. Menifee?
Hi, thank you. I'm on mute. Okay. I might have missed it in the beginning, but what is the source of the funding for the purchase? Is it entirely from RCA coffers, or are there grants that are going to be utilized for the purchase?
If I can defer to Aaron or to Jennifer Fuller for that question.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question, Board Member Carwin. It will be RCA funds that we will set aside in the budget to purchase these properties. We will not be pursuing grant funds.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up to that, I noticed that there are 11 properties. The resolution is kind of all-encompassing. I presume that passing the resolution would allow us, if some of the properties were to fall out and some were to continue, we don't need to do it one by one. It would just, any that are left at the end of the review period would be eligible for the acquisition?
That is correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Awesome, thank you. Great question. Yes, so if this will be for all of 11 properties, but again, just our intent. So we have a motion to approve both action items of authorizing the acquisition of the properties and then adopting resolution 2022-004, second by Temecula. If there's no further discussion, we will go to roll call vote.
District 1?
District 1, yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
Banning?
Yes.
Beaumont?
Yes.
Calimesa?
Yes.
Canyon Lake?
Aye.
Corona?
Aye.
Eastvale?
Aye.
Hemet?
Sorry. Yes.
Carupa Valley?
Yes.
Lake Elsinore?
Yes.
Menifee?
Yes.
Moreno Valley?
Yes.
Marietta?
Yes.
Norco?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Riverside?
Aye.
San Jacinto?
Yes.
Temecula?
Aye.
Wildemar?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8 passes.
All right, thank you. I'd just like to make a note to staff for future updating of this. Could we just have the total amount of acres and the total costs associated with the lump sum so we can see that going forward would be helpful, even if as we progress and some drop off or whatever, just keep us posted on the total. That would be helpful. Bless you, Riverside. I saw that twice, so you're blessed. You're good to go now for the rest of the day. All right, that's going to take us to item number 9, which is our quarterly financial statements. Are there any requests to speak before we turn it over to Ms. Jennifer Fuller?
We did not receive any written comments on this item, and I am not seeing any hands raised.
All right, the floor is yours.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. Today I'll present on the second quarter financial statements and related budget adjustments. Next slide, please. In December 2020, the board adopted the 2020 Nexus study, allowing for a new local development fee structure. New fees were phased in, with the first increase in July of 21 and the second in January of 22. The board also allowed member agencies to accept prepayments of the LDMF. Next slide, please. This slide shows the LDMF collection history since fiscal year 2005. Last year looked more like pre-Great Recession years than more recent years. The majority of collections occurred in the last quarter of the fiscal year, with nearly $17 million relating to June alone. Of the amount collected for June, over $10 million related to prepayments. Prepayments appear to have a direct effect of lowering the collections in this fiscal year. In the current year, the development mitigation budget is $20 million. We are proposing a budget adjustment this afternoon to reduce that amount to 16 million. Next slide, please. Staff developed the fiscal year 22 budget estimates in the spring of 21. At that time, fiscal year 21 collections were in line with fiscal year 20. Fiscal year 22 permits were projected to be similar to the prior 2 fiscal years, and staff adjusted the 22 budget projection slightly due to the increase in LDMF fees. Staff believes due to the large amount of prepayments collected during June 2021 and the current economic climate, LDMF collections have not been as robust this year as originally projected. Therefore, staff is recommending a budget adjustment to lower estimated revenues and related expenditures to more align with the current projection of 16 million. Developer mitigation revenues in the capital projects funds will be reduced 3.4 million and 600,000 in the endowment fund. Next slide, please. Right-of-way staff closed on 5 properties using the 2017 Section 6 grant to close out the grant and expend nearly all grant funds. The amount of grant funds received is greater than the amount budgeted. Therefore, federal and state grant estimated revenues need to be increased along with the related expenditures. The federal grant estimated revenue will be increased $125,500, and state revenue will be increased by $67,500 to ensure adequate expenditure budget for the Section 6 properties. Next slide, please. The state Harupa Mountains grant was set to expire in March of 22. Therefore, budget was set to expend the entirety of the grant this fiscal year. However, there are few properties available in the grant location for purchase. As staff has communicated previously, this is a tough grant given the low number of properties and the low value of the properties RCA has appraised. Right-of-way staff has also negotiated a 1-year extension of the grant terms. Therefore, staff is recommending a budget adjustment to decrease estimated revenues and related expenditures to only those amounts already received or potentially to be received this fiscal year. Estimated revenues will be decreased by 12.54 million. This decrease will be offset by the increase from the previous slide to a net decrease of 12.47 million. The next 3 slides show the mid-year results by program. Next slide, please. The operations budget is progressing well at mid-year. All revenues are at 50% or more budgeted amounts, except for tipping fees, which will be allocated at the end of the fiscal year. Operating transfers in will be done in the 3rd quarter and at year end, which will eliminate the negative change in net operating position. Professional and support costs are low compared to the budget, as most contracts had only billed 4 to 5 months of service through mid-year. Staff expects the operation budget to be within budget at year end. Next slide, please. The management and monitoring budget is progressing well at mid-year as well. All revenues are at 50% or more budgeted amounts, except for tipping fees, for which only 1 quarter has been received to date. Staff expects tipping fees will exceed budget at year end. Operating transfers will be done at year end if needed. And professional and support costs are low compared to the budget, as again, most contracts had only billed 4 to 5 months of service through mid-year. Other charges relate to owner associations on reserve lands. Most of those charges are paid in the spring, and therefore actual to date is low at mid-year. Staff expects the management and monitoring budget to be within budget at year end. Next slide, please. The land acquisition budget is not seeing the revenues at mid-year as discussed previously. While federal grant revenue is projected to exceed budgeted amounts, state grant revenue is low and LDMF revenue is projected to miss budget targets. Only 1 quarter of TUMP had been received through mid-year. However, staff expects TUMP will exceed budget at year end. Professional and support costs are low compared to the budget, as most contracts, again, had only billed 4 to 5 months of service through mid-year. This is offset, though, by higher than expected amount of insurance premiums, which increased nearly $36,000 from the estimate to the actual invoice. Debt service relates to the final payment on the loan from the County of Riverside to purchase the Anheuser-Busch property. Related interest was paid in the 3rd quarter. 7 properties were purchased during the first 6 months, adding over 400 acres of ARL. Staff expects many more properties will close before year end, as well as a number of donations. Operating transfers out will be done in the 3rd quarter and at year end. And staff expects with this budget adjustment that land acquisitions budget will be within budget at year end. Next slide, please. This item is for the board to receive and file the second quarter financial statements for the 6 months ended December 31st, 2021, and to approve the fiscal year 22 budget adjustments in attachment 2 to the staff report. Staff expects to return to the board in June with the fiscal 23 budget. This completes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. First item is receive and file, but the second is the approval of the budget adjustments. So I will turn it to the board for comments, questions, and considerations.
Did you see a hand raised from Director Daddario?
Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. I have a question. Did I understand that correctly, that part of the process of changing the budget was because last year there was a lot of prepayment and MSHCP fees, which resulted in lower collections this year? Did I understand that correctly? And then
Yes.
Was that yes?
Yes, that's exactly what we think is happening.
Okay, and then did I also understand correctly that the majority of those were towards the last half, the quarter 3, quarter 4 of the fiscal year? So do we not anticipate any more prepayment of fees this fiscal year because we're closing in on the end of it?
There is a possibility that member agencies could see prepayments again in June of this year before any potential increase in July, as there will be a COLA on the LDMF before July, but there is no way to determine right now if that will happen. All the prepayments, with the exception of just a few, were in June of last year. There was just a few in May.
Okay. And then, so the money that you guys are asking us to remove from the budget or to lower the budget on, is that correct? You guys are asking us to lower the budget?
Yes, exactly. To lower the estimated revenues for the local development mitigation fee from 20 million to 16 million to more be in line with where we project revenues will come in this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
All right, then what is the pleasure of the board for the budget adjustment?
I'd move approval.
Okay, second Temecula.
I have a motion to approve by Riverside and a second by Temecula. If there's no further discussion, we will go to roll call vote.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
Banning?
Yes.
Beaumont?
Yes.
Calamasa?
Yes.
Canyon Lake?
Aye.
Corona?
Aye.
Eastvale?
Aye.
Hemet?
Yes.
Europa Valley?
Yes.
Lake Elsinore?
Yes.
Menifee?
Yes.
Moreno Valley?
Yes.
Marietta?
Yes.
Norco?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Riverside?
Aye.
San Jacinto?
Yes.
Temecula?
Aye.
Wildemar?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9 passes.
All right, thank you so much. That'll take us to item 10, and then we'll have item 11, which is our Board of Directors comments, Executive Director report. But first up is our presentation, getting to know the MSHCP, and I believe Betsy will be presenting to us today.
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson, board members, and the public. This month, we will be presenting on the criteria refinement process. This is a mechanism available for permittees and project applicants. Next slide, please. A criteria refinement is a form of exchange of lands that are described by the MSHCP for conservation for lands that are not described by the MSHCP for conservation yet to have the same or better conservation value. Criteria refinements allow for flexibility within the MSHCP so that development can concur if the permittee can identify suitable lands. The criteria refinement process is found in section 6.5, volume 1 of the MSHCP. Criteria refinements are only needed within criteria cells.
A key requirement of this process is that the described conservation be transferred to lands that are not already described for conservation in section 3.3 of the MSHCP, and that the replacement lands occur within or adjacent to cells or be adjacent to existing MSHCP reserve land. Essentially, this process transfers what's described for conservation within a particular cell to lands that have no described conservation. Since the inception of the MSHCP, there have been 8 criteria refinement applications submitted to the RCA, with 4 completed, 2 withdrawn by either the permittee or the applicant, and 2 that are currently being processed. Next slide, please. This slide provides the basic steps of a criteria refinement. Once a city or county is in support of a criteria refinement, a completed application is sent to the RCA, which will begin step 1. However, prior to step 1, there will be discussion between the permittee, applicants, RCA, and the wildlife agencies to ensure all parties are aware a criteria refinement is being considered so that all parties can present the necessary guidance and input. Step 2 of this process is that within 60 days of receiving the completed application, the RCA performs an equivalency analysis per section 6.5 of the MSHCP and provides these findings to all parties, which include the permittee, project applicant, affected parties, and the wildlife agencies. This triggers the beginning of a 60-day comment period whereby any of the entities can provide comments. Step 3 of this process is that if the RCA receives comments during the 60-day comment period, then within 30 days of the comment period closing, the RCA will schedule a meet and confer with all parties to discuss the comments issues and come to a resolution. If there are no comments, then the RCA's equivalency findings stand as final. If a meet and confer is held, then the RCA findings are revised and finalized with final copies sent to all parties. This completes the RCA analysis part of the criteria refinement. It is important to note that the wildlife agencies have approval authority over all criteria refinements that include replacement lands outside of cells. For criteria refinements that are entirely within a cell, the permittee and the RCA have approval authority. Step 4 of this process is that once the findings are final, a joint project review process can be completed with both the criteria refinement and the joint project review being included in the permittee's CEQA document. Once the project receives a notice of determination, or NOD, by the lead agency, the permittee sends the NOD to the RCA so the RCA can provide a public notice and hearing on the proposed criteria refinement with the RCA Board of Directors reviewing the refinement and making a final determination as the responsible agency under CEQA. Criteria refinements in the last few years have become more common, and the RCA anticipates it will become a common process as more and more development occurs or is desired to occur within lands described for the MSHCP reserve. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Betsy. Any questions or comments for Betsy? You all are professionals now, understand it completely, ready to cite it from memory. Perfect.
I'm more confused now.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. That's going to take us to our board of directors. And before I turn it over to executive director report, do you all have any updates?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, we will take silence as golden. I wanted to quickly say that thank you. We heard a little bit about it, but the stakeholder meeting went very well. And I appreciate the input from our stakeholders as they just had their first meeting. So that's great. I wanted to also just remind the board that the stakeholders committee is given their agenda by us as the board that we would like their input and feedback on. So as we're looking and working through things, this is where we can agendize should we need some additional input. But just emphasis again on the authority of our stakeholder. They cannot give policy direction. But they are encouraged and we will be utilizing them for decision-making and perspective. So just really wanted to give a little bit of clarity there. And also we've heard prepayment come up very frequently. we've spoken in depth about this, both at the board and the executive committee level. May I ask that we agendize prepayment penalty presentation, or not penalty, prepayment presentation, too many P's there, to explain once again, and just so that we have a clear understanding of what we can and can't do and where we're at with prepayment. And I think that are all my comments. And then Anne, I will turn it over to you for your executive director.
Okay. Thank you very much. And yes, we will include an item on prepayment and the policies and how and when prepayment is accepted. So we will include that on a future agenda. And just a few more comments regarding the stakeholder committee. As the chair mentioned, we had our first stakeholder committee meeting last week. It was very, very well attended by our committee members. There was a lot of engagement and conversation. I think we went almost 2 hours long with the committee discussion itself. You may recall you had referred 2 items to the stakeholder committee for discussion. One of them being the timing of fee credits and when fee credits could be considered. The second was offsite mitigation in exchange for fee credits. So we did have extensive conversation there. We got a lot of feedback, and I think it will be next month where staff will come back to you with the findings from that discussion, as well as some recommendations. But it was a really productive meeting where we were able to get a diverse array of opinions on both of those topics. So stay tuned. We'll be back to you with staff recommendations in the near future. I also do want to emphasize that although the stakeholder committee has a specific number of members, that does not mean that other stakeholders in Western Riverside County don't have the opportunity to have conversation and discussion with staff. And so stakeholder comments are always welcome, whether or not anyone is a part of the current stakeholder committee. Second item for update is stay tuned. April 22nd, we'll be coming back to you with some more detail about our first field tour. We are trying to be able to get tours in prior to hot weather coming up upon us, but I think by the end of the week, we're going to be in the 90s here, but stay tuned. We're looking at the morning of April 22nd for our first tour for board members to be able to go out and check out some of the RCA owned and operated lands. And then finally, on the consent calendar, there was an item on state and federal legislative issues and updates. I just would like to reiterate, this is a very active season in Sacramento related to legislation. We are very, very active in advocating for funding, advocating on behalf of MSHCPs, both as RCA, as an individual entity, as well as part of the statewide coalitions. At the federal level, conversations are continuing as well, and of significance. The refuge bill is still in process, and we are very engaged with both Senator Feinstein's staff and Congressman Calvert's staff on a regular basis related to their efforts to move the refuge bill forward in some fashion in Washington, D.C. So again, the full update is in your agenda package under the consent calendar item, but I did want to emphasize we are very actively engaged there as well. And if any of you find yourselves on trips, virtual or in person, to Sacramento and Washington, D.C., and you need talking points from us on RCA related business, don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll make sure you have the latest and greatest at your fingertips. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Anne, for the update. If there's nothing further, then we are adjourning, and our next meeting will be Monday, May 2nd. So we will see you then. Until then, have a great rest of your month. Happy April. Lots of spiritual holidays, Easter, Passover, all the things. So I'll wish you well for anything else you're celebrating. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.